Hi, people. This is DJ.
This is Ish.
And this is
Season
3
3
of Pero Let Me Tell You. My universe will never be the same. I'm glad you came. I'm glad you came. Wanted.
I like them.
That other song. You might be chasing the sun.
I love that song.
That song. That was a good song.
I love that song. But you know, here we are. Fake Friday.
Oh, we're recording.
Episode 116. I don't know, I felt like doing a Ike and Tina intro. You know?
Got it. Let's do the Argentina intro.
You know. Here we are. Episode
Nice.
Nice.
Easy.
But you know, we never record an episode.
Nice. Easy.
We like to do things
Nice. Rough. And this is how you do. Pero let me tell you. Episode 116. And we move further and further away from episode 100.
Al rumbo que vamos, we're never gonna have this party.
How is everybody? Happy Friday. Happy Pero Friday.
Entre la corona, everything happening.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about our friends at Only and Date.
You mean AKA burning cars?
Okay, we need to talk about that. So I like everybody else, we love Only and Date.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
think that Only and Date has become like a better news source than the news source.
It's weird. It's weird. Like I sometimes I'm going through their stories and I'm like, oh shit, the curfew's back.
And you know what's interesting about Only and Date is that there's no editorializing. It's not like
it's not an opinion thing.
they're just posting
Here,
things,
right?
right?
This happened.
And and what I keep saying, and you and I have joked about this, but like when you follow them and you see their content on a daily basis, like I start wondering. I drive the Palmetto every single day, which in Miami, as we know, the Palmetto is
the
like
main thoroughfare.
Yes, it's like the Mount Everest of highways. Ahí pasa todo, and it goes through Hialeah. I mean, come on,
Yeah, once you go through Hialeah,
man. And I don't see burning cars like the. Only in Dade, it's like at least 3 or 4 burning cars a day. A day. And you know what I love? When like people already know now when they see a burning car, you send it to Only in Dade.
But what else are you supposed to do?
So
I feel like it should be one of those things like the 411 where it's like if you're in an accident, call 911 and then call 411. So it's like if you see a burning car, call 911, then post to Only in
and
Dade.
then what I love is that many times you see the same burning car from different angles.
Helps with the insurance claim, I'm sure.
It's like, okay, you have like the opposite view, and then you have like the side view, and then you hear the people saying Only in Dade.
Oh Lord, with their little tag on the side there.
No, and I love when people post like stupid shit on boats.
Oh my God! Well, we have an opinion on certain people stupid shit on boats.
On stupid shit on boats. Oh, people do the stupidest shit on boats. People do the stupidest shit on regattas. That's
Regattas. People forget like that everything.
You know, I've been to a few regattas.
I've never been.
You've never been to a regatta?
That I know of.
How can you not know that if you went to a regatta?
You know, okay. First of all, you know me. Like I may have been at one, and I did like. And there was just a lot of boats there, but I didn't know it was a regatta necessarily. Like maybe it was
The regatta is one of those things.
It's usually like the Columbus Day Regatta, which I guess now we have to call Indigenous Peoples Day Regatta.
We kind of went to a regatta one time. The time we went on the boat that time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I remember.
Okay, see, that's what I mean. Like,
I remember where he parked the boat.
Right. There was other boats.
Right, because obviously there's regattas for certain weekends
Events.
and certain events and
Right.
certain, holidays. But the sandbar is very, when the sandbar is there, people just go to the sandbar.
So then I have been to a regatta. Because when I think regatta, I think of like like you were saying, the specific, like this long weekend regatta type of thing. Okay.
And look, when you go on a random weekend and you just go to the sandbar, which technically is a regatta, it's the same thing. It's just not as crowded.
Right.
The problem with the regattas, as we all know, is that you're there all day and you're having a good time. You're drinking. And when it's time to go back to Black Point Marina,
you wind up on Only in Dade.
You wind up on
Only in Dade. That is, I mean, that's it. That's shorthand right now.
I also love when on Only in Dade, This is not as common, but they posted when they post that one idiot who was reversing the car into the marina to like their boat, and they either didn't put their brake on or whatever, and their car ends up in the water, or they want an insurance claim to get a new car.
Either way,
I love it. So our hats off to Only in Date. We love Only in Date. Okay, you know what? Again, what's I think fascinating about that Instagram page is that it, as I said, there's no editorializing. It's not like the creators of Only in Date are there like curating or like
right when
putting
on the off times they do create content. It's literally just them like interviewing DJ Laz.
I mean,
or
what they're
like
putting are firsthand videos and pictures of people here in Miami,
experiences.
And it's funny how if you ever want to say, well, we're always talking about like the personality of Miami and our culture and all that. Yeah. Just look at Only a Date. It's like, that is organic.
Oh no, for sure. Like there's nothing fake about
that is organic because it's by the people for the people. For the people of Only in Date.
For better or worse.
I love there's a Broward equivalent, right?
Whatever. What is it, Las Olas?
It's like, oh wow, brawl fight at Las Olas.
Whatever.
Wow. Tough times.
It's funny you bring up Instagram because I actually wanted to bring something up because that's just be like the second week in a row that I bring up your legal expertise in relation to Instagram. So you may have heard, I don't know if it was this week or last week, but one of I think it's like Miami Lakes, Hialeah area, anti-BLM protest, I guess. So there was a BLM protest and there was there was people anti-protesting across the street or whatever.
Who are anti-protesting who all swear they're not racist.
Right. Well, there was a 17-year-old who took pictures of the people at that event, the anti-whatevers. He posted it on his Instagram, and in the caption, he said something to the effect of, he basically called them racist. I believe he even used the word racist, right? Well, a day or two later, he actually got a letter from a lawyer representing some or all of those people. And I totally thought of you because the lawyer ended it with govern yourself accordingly. Basically saying that, he had, for him to take it down because he's alleging people are racist. He doesn't know that they're racist. And, otherwise he could face legal action, blah, blah. Again, a 17-year-old, right? And this is a lawyer and these are adults or whatever. My question to you is
that defamation?
Yeah, because here's the thing. Especially in this day and age, I would imagine that unless you can prove, like if they, like you see some, extreme example, but like you see them like lynching a black man, for you to say just to say it, right? Like to say they're a racist or they're not holding a KKK sign or whatever. In this very heated climate, that really could become a lightning rod for that person's, job or what have you.
Right.
And again, just because you are at the protest doesn't quote unquote, I'm speaking hypothetically, but doesn't quote unquote make you a racist. In the I guess definition.
So let me ask, because I don't know about this post.
Okay. I didn't see the post either. I saw it because Billy Corbin is all about it.
Did he name anyone in particular?
No, because he did not know these
people. So
he
just, let's say it's a crowd.
He took a picture of a crowd.
No.
And he labeled them as racists.
No, that's not. I don't think that's defamation. First of all, he's not naming someone in particular, so he is not. He is not attacking the reputation of someone. First off. Secondly,
well, but couldn't you make the argument that by labeling someone a racist, and again, I didn't see the picture. If their faces are clearly visible, you are not naming them, but
you're not. And he could say, so you have to say, and he posted this on Instagram, you said?
Yes.
So, okay, so that was a published element because you have to publish it.
Right.
I would, okay, so I'm going to try to argue both sides of this. Okay. So on the one hand.
And as you do that, I'm actually going to look up the story.
So on the one hand, what you said, if I was the attorney of the crowd, that is the argument that I would make. It's like, okay, you didn't say a name, but you are showing my clients, and this is what they're doing, and you're calling them racist. But then on his side, I would defend that it doesn't meet all the elements of of defamation because, first of all, that's his opinion. Opinions are not subject to defamation.
I have here. So he posted the picture. His whole thing was he was at the rally,
right?
And he's like, people are always taking the pictures of like the protesters, right? Never of the anti, whatever. And so he took the picture of them, and they were wearing, had signs that said like Cubans for Trump and MAGA hats and whatever. And then he posted several. Actually, they were on Twitter. It wasn't on Instagram, but
it was on Twitter.
It was on Twitter, which the cesspool that Twitter is. He labeled it #racists of Miami Lakes. And he says, I wrote that because they're actively going against a Black Lives Matter protest. If you don't agree that Black Lives Matter, then you're a racist, he says.
Okay. In a defamation case, you have to have some type of injury or damage. Like in any case, you have to have damage. So that would be one of the things that I would look into. Has anybody been damaged by this kid's Instagram post?
So the thread gathered several thousand likes. By the time that the kid woke up on Monday, this is like on a Sunday. He went to bed, he woke up. There was an email from Miami Lakes attorney Douglas Jeffrey threatening to sue him for defamation and his parents for quote unquote vicarious liability.
Nope, you can't do
and
that.
Quote unquote negligent supervision.
You can't do that. You can't do that, and that attorney should know better. You can't sue a minor for acts of their kid. You can't sue parents for acts of their minor child.
So after he took down the Twitter thread, he did receive messages and comments from many lawyers who specialize in First Amendment rights who said Jeffrey's letter was meritless.
It was. I mean,
and many of them said that they would help him fight it pro bono.
And shame on that attorney for doing that. There's a couple of layers here.
Yeah.
First of
peel
all,
back that layer.
First of all, you can't sue parents for the tortious or negligent acts.
What's tortious?
A tort.
Oh, okay.
So negligence. You can't sue a parent for the negligent acts or, let's say, criminal acts of their minor children.
So in other words, a kid goes in and shoplifts. You can't arrest the parent for the shoplifting.
Can you just imagine
if
you could?
I'm saying, let's whittle it down for... Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, can you just imagine if you could sue parents for the behavior of their children?
Right.
I mean... You can't. So shame on that attorney for even going there. In terms of the defamation case against them.
And I do have here that according to Florida statutes, a defendant is guilty of defamation if they publish statements about someone that can harm that person's reputation and can be proven false. The thing is that the question of whether calling someone a racist counts as defamation has come up in recent years, but a number of legal opinions have found that the term racist is an opinion and therefore protected by the First Amendment.
That's the first thing I said. I'm like, this is his opinion, right? Because one thing is for you to, especially on social media, to call somebody a racist. Another thing is for you to write an article about how racist this person is and detailing their racist behavior, only to find out that that's all not true, right? That's a different thing. But you on social media putting, look at these racists or look at that racist, for all intents and purposes, that is your opinion. And
it's almost the equivalent of saying, look at these motherfuckers.
Right. And opinions are protected speech. So I would suggest for anybody who's going to make a statement like that to put, in my opinion, look at these racists.
But not... As our senior year English teacher, Ms. Mendez said,
in my personal
opinion,
I think.
Because how in the hell else are you going to think if not in your personal opinion?
Right. So if you guys don't want to get a letter from a lawyer trying to do something, just put, in my opinion, ... Look at these racists. Look at these. Can you imagine?
And if you do, we know a good lawyer right here.
Can you imagine the trouble we would be in?
Oh my God. I'm surprised that we don't get more cease and desists.
Yeah, I'm surprised though that attorney sent that.
I'm not.
No, I am, because look.
I'm not, because it's a publicity thing.
Yeah, but I think it's a publicity thing, because look, obviously as attorneys, like in any career or in any position, you could kind of make an argument for both sides, and you could always see both sides of an argument, and you could always kind of argue both ends of something, right? But the problem with that letter that you read to me, was just a lot of the allegations that he made, or a lot of the allegations or counts towards him that he made are just flat out wrong. Like, he can't sue your parents, period. Like,
Right. For all yeah.
I mean, you can't. Like, that is well-established law.
Right.
So why would you put something like that?
Well, again, like I said, publicity, because ultimately, here's the thing. There are people out there who, and even starting with myself, who my first thought was, well, shit, especially nowadays, if you call somebody a racist and then they get fired and their boss says, oh, it's because they said you were racist, like, se busca problema, right? But I'm also thinking, there are probably people out there who don't have any knowledge of the law. I mean, that's fair. Not everybody's a lawyer. Who will see this and be like,
right,
yes, that is correct. Hello, you're a lawyer. How many people don't walk through your door and ask you to take cases where you're just like, sir, that is not something I can take to court? And they're like,
my personal favorite story, I may have shared it here, was, this has not been once, this has not been twice, this has not been 3 times, it's been several times. People that are like, yeah, I fell down and had an injury and I wanna sue. Okay, where did you fall down? My house. Are you the owner of your house? Yes. And you want to sue yourself? Yes. Sir, you can't sue yourself. Well, my neighbor told me I could. Well, but you can't. You can't sue yourself. So are we going to allege that due to your negligence, you
created an unsafe environment?
You are the proximate cause of your damages? So therefore, you should be awarded for your negligence? Is that what we're going to argue? Yes. But I know somebody who did. And that is like...
There's always that person they know.
Right. And that is why I want to leave this profession and do something else.
Oh, Lord. So yeah. So, but on a
but I also make that another comment that the kid who did that does he have like a large following or whatever?
I don't know. I didn't,
because, for example, that's something that's very important, because if that kid is...
It was retweeted thousands of times. Now, I don't know how it was retweeted. But
that's not his problem. That's not his problem.
Okay.
If he is not like a news source, or let's say somebody that has millions of followers, or
an influencer,
or an influencer. I didn't want to use influencer.
No,
we're talking legality here.
But
even more, because this is an individual. Now, can you imagine if like a corporation did that? That's different, because that's a corporation. They have millions of followers. So that I would make the argument that one of the elements of defamation is publication.
Right.
That when you are somebody who is a common a lay person, and you have a small audience, just how effective is the element of publication versus if you're somebody who on social media has millions of followers.
Right. No, that makes sense. I mean, can you imagine like if like the president was to do something like that?
I couldn't imagine.
Ever.
Nope.
Ever.
Nope. Nope. Anyway, let's move right along before I get an aneurysm.
So, gonna kind of stay on the topic of racism, even if it's tangentially.
Oh.
Okay. So, I don't know if you heard about this. Well, I know you know that in the last couple of weeks, with all of the Black Lives Matter movements, and all of these, we're really revisiting a lot of things that in the past may have been offensive, but kind of like, let it slide or what have you. Gone with the Wind was taken down from HBO Max well, have you heard about the latest casualty?
What?
Those 4 racist Miami bitches. They were probably from Miami Lakes, the Golden Girls.
Oh, about the blackface episode?
Yes. Now, do you know the episode they're talking about? Because I know it by heart, and I can synopsize it right now.
Aren't they in a mud bath?
So here's the thing: Dorothy's son comes home with the woman he's going to marry. The woman is black, but she's also like a good 20, 30 years older than him. She's older than he is. Dorothy has a problem with her being older, not black. Fine, whatever. That's the whole thing. Eventually, the lady's family shows up because they have a problem with her marrying the white boy, right? So it's, quote unquote, reverse racism, hijinks ensue. When the lady's family shows up, Rose and Blanche come out of the bedroom area wearing mud masks. And they say something Dorothy says like, oh, these are my roommates. And Rose says something like, oh, these are just face masks. We're not black. That scene has caused them to pull that episode from Hulu, to my knowledge. I don't know if it's been pulled from Hallmark and TV Line. It's been pulled
for now.
Been pulled from Hulu. I don't think that's because sensitivities to blackface. I don't think that's a blackface scenario.
Well, no, that's kind of like Alyssa Milano. I love Melissa Milano. Got a little bit of heat this week as well.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Because they pulled out First of all, you have to see who's bringing this about, right? Because Alyssa Milano. And we'll tie it into what you said. Alyssa Milano has become very much the activist, and she knows her shit.
God bless her.
So there was this picture that was put out there saying she had done blackface and what a hypocrite she was. Do you know what the blackface picture was? Some years back, she dressed up as Snooki.
Snooki's not black.
So she was laughing at the tan.
Right.
Because it was at the
GTL.
10, right? At the 10,
right?
And she made very clear to make that distinction, and she found who leaked it, and it was like a right wing,
of course,
media source,
right?
Which we're doing that to provoke that, and
look, yeah.
Right. So with the issue with the Golden Girls, I mean, look, we're in a really sensitive time right now, so that's probably like a really.
That's an extreme.
Because probably. But we're in a really sensitive time right now, so I don't mind if they pull it. Like right now, if they pull it, because I don't think it's so much. Because we always say censorship. Censorship. People shouldn't be censored. I don't see it, at least for right now, as a form of censorship. I see it more as a form of discretion. Like maybe right now is not the best time to show this.
Fair enough.
Right now,
fair enough. But I think that you and I have always said this. In life, it's about context, and it's not like Blanche and Rose came out, kind of going like, "Yes, massa,"
right.
It was not a intentional that situation. I feel like on Facebook, a friend of mine posted, a thing like, "I'd like to know how people feel about this, because I'm not black, I don't know," and of course everybody who responded was white because internet. Right. But one of the responses was like, well, maybe they should take it down and put it with like, like a contextual warning, like they did with Gone with the Wind. And this other person responded, he's like, what are they going to say? 2 old women decide to have a beauty regimen and get confused for black people? I mean, like, what's
as I said, there's no... Right, that, this is like stuff like that is when we... cross, I don't want to say cross the line, but you step into territory of like, okay,
you kind of start to lose the narrative.
What is really in this case blackface and disrespectful and wrong, and what is
a mix-up,
right? That one is probably the latter. I don't mind if they pull it, at least for now, just because of the time that we're in. That's like, I actually
listen. Betty White is many things. I
became annoyed at this for another reason. Well, yes, the context is important, but the meme was wrong. There's a meme going around of the Golden Girls with a Confederate flag. Have you seen it?
Well, it's a whole video. So the scene with with Rue and Don Cheadle.
Yes. So the meme that has been going around says, oh, this whole issue with the Confederate flag is nothing new. Look at the Golden Girls in 1988, 30 years ago, having an argument about the Confederate flag.
Oh, yeah, but it was a Golden Palace.
I'm like, I wanted to respond, but, again, the time and place.
Right,
and I'm like, this is not the Golden Girls. This is the Golden Palace.
It was like
and this was in 1993. So, yes, for the meme, and yes, because in the which is actually...
It's really good.
The scene is actually really good. Blanche is kind of trying to be Blanche.
She's being her,
but she's like, but this
southern
is
self.
This is the flag of my southern,
my tradition, my culture,
heritage, and whatever. And Don Cheadle was like, I forget his character's name. He's like, yeah, but that's what you see when you see that flag. But when I see that flag, I think of oppression and slavery and how my family was tortured and blah blah blah. So they made a learning moment of it. It's just whoever created that meme, go back. Especially with like the Golden Girls have such a loyal
very
fan
passionate.
base
that
it's like no. That was not the Golden Girls. That was the Golden Palace.
I just need you to change the date.
2 different shows.
I just need you to change the date. That's it.
2 different shows. 2 different shows. 2 different times. 1993 versus 1988. But yeah, look, I think that at this time, it is a very sensitive time and it's a very delicate time. And I don't mind if certain things right now are either changed or I don't want to say censored because I don't think that's censorship or pulled back or, because we all know about time and place, and right now there's certain things that maybe just for the moment are very insensitive. So while I agree that, them in the mud, that
It's not.
That's not blackface, and maybe it didn't even pass by their minds that it was blackface. We're in a very sensitive time right now, and maybe it's not the best time to show that right now. So,
I guess.
Fine.
Oh my God. We have to give the listeners an update on your mold situation.
Yes, my house is being reconstructed.
It's no longer looking like the house from E.T.
Well, no, now it's worse.
But
but soon it'll be livable, I guess.
Inhabitable,
I guess. But that's why we're in our other studios.
Exactly,
because we have more than one studio.
we have several studios all across this great city of ours.
I know, from coast to coast.
Oh yeah, I honestly didn't recognize the wall when you showed it to me.
The built-in is gone.
The built-in that was there since you guys moved in.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, and Tristan is loving it because he is sleeping at his grandparents'
Oh,
house.
él está haciendo lo que le da la gana.
So 4th of July.
Yes.
We might kind of mention this last week. There's like a total clusterfuck this year.
Really? We haven't noticed.
Well, yes. With like time among everything.
Yeah.
About like time, because it's like, again, in your mind, it's like, okay, Mother's Day is like in May. We celebrate Mother's Day. Then Father's Day is like in June. And like when the kids are out of school, that's like when summer starts.
Right. But they've been out of school since March.
and when summer starts, it's like, okay.
And then you couldn't really get together for Mother's Day.
Right. But there's certain events that happen every year that kind of in your mind map map the time or the season. But now since everything's gone to shit, it's like, oh, it's summer. And it's the 4th of July?
It's always hot here, so when the hell do we know when it's summer?
Well, but
we only know it because the kids are out of school.
Right, but now it's like melting hot. It's always hot here, but now it's like melting hot. Now it's like you get in your car and you're like, shit, it's hot. So
yesterday it was like 99. It said feels like 99 degrees. I'm like, just say it feels like 100.
So 4th of July is canceled this year. But our 4th of July...
So when you say canceled...
Well, no, it's like officially canceled. The city of Miami canceled 4th of July.
Really? Can they do that?
There's no fireworks. Well, they can cancel the nation's birthday.
Listen, nowadays, who's to say?
But no, there's no fireworks. There's no official like city celebrations. 4th of July is canceled. The beach is going to be closed. So
they're not doing fireworks at all anywhere.
No, but I'm celebrating the 4th of July with Burger Beast.
So am I.
With his burger box.
So am I.
So I'm ready to enjoy those.
So am I. Actually, you know what? I should be getting it today.
High quality burgers.
I have to text him about that because I leave tomorrow.
So what do we think about celebrating America this year?
I don't know how to answer that anymore.
244.
Wow. She looks like a very spry 150.
Mm-hmm. I love how in Que Paso you say they start talking about America's bicentennial.
God, we're old. It's weird. It's a weird time to be celebrating the birth of our nation, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I still plan to celebrate it because, first of all, I'm going away and I'm going to be by a pool drinking, and so that's fun. Regardless of how you feel, that it is the birth of our nation with all of its inherent problems and everything.
Okay, let me.
But it's a recognition of the start.
Let me follow this. With 4th of July this year, because 4th of July is generally a time that people feel very patriotic.
Yeah.
Delusionally patriotic, but patriotic nonetheless. With what's been going on this year, especially with, all the protests and, everything with the police brutality and Black Lives Matter and all that.
Right.
Does it make you more or less proud to be an American? Whether, whatever that may mean. Maybe pride is not the right word. But does it make you more or less have faith in our nation, in our country? Like, how do you feel about celebrating America and what America is in such a turbulent year?
So I'm gonna use the word proud and pride, for lack of a better word. It does make me feel proud to ultimately be an American, because when I do see people taking a stand for things that they perceive to be an injustice that needs to change, that needs to be revisited, that needs to be reimagined, regardless of how I may feel about it, how you may feel about it, the fact that there are people who are still upholding that spirit of what this country was founded on has demonstrated to me that it does still exist within us. You know, we are still a country that, and some are protesting for the wrong things, you know, according to you and I, and so on and so forth, and other people are protesting for the right things, but that is the spirit of this country. You know, this country, this nation is, for all intents and purposes, even to this day, if you start looking across the world, the rebellious teenager.
Okay.
And I don't think we've lost that spark. We may have lost our way every now and again, but I think that there's still that underlying spirit there.
Okay, fair enough. So I believe that, in my opinion, so don't sue me.
In your personal opinion, you think.
In my personal opinion, I think.
Ever since she said that,
I know,
I've never forgotten it.
I know. Miss Maria Mendez. Dr. Maria Mendez.
Dr. Maria Mendez.
Still to this day, after having gone to college and law school, still one of my favorite teachers.
One of the best teachers we've ever had.
Best, amazing. That's because public schools are awesome.
Damn right.
And I believe in the promise of America and the promise of the United States. And, you know, sometimes I get really frustrated, and sometimes I get, you know, I get very upset of how unfair things are for a lot of people, and how, you know, especially coming from a legal background, how justice is so unfair sometimes, and justice is supposed to be at least fair. And how, you know, we say that the United States is the land of opportunity, but we fail to realize that, yes, there's a lot of opportunity for everybody, but not everybody starts at the same line.
True.
You know, the starting line is very different for different people. But I believe in the promise of what this country can be, and hopefully one day will be. And I think that, you know, especially from my perspective, that I'm a big Constitution person, and I love American history. You know, when you start reading the Constitution, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish these inalienable rights, you know, and it goes on to that. And you realize that those words were so kind of ahead of their time. And the fact that even the Constitution, I see the Constitution as a document that was never finished. It's a working document.
So we have amendments,
and that's the beauty of our Constitution, that it can change and it can evolve, and it could wrong rights. You know,
right wrongs.
Right wrongs. Excuse me.
We do not want to wrong rights.
You don't want to wrong a right.
No, that's what got us here.
Oh my God, I was on such an inspirational.
You were,
tangent.
and I almost hesitated to correct you, but I was like, that's a really big one that needs to be corrected.
You can right a wrong. You know, you can fix it, and still uphold the values and the main message and the main rights that the Constitution granted. And I think that when you start seeing those things, and you see that despite all the flaws that we have, despite, you know, and we've talked about that here in our country, in our podcast, despite, you know, the fatal flaws that our country was born with, which was slavery and, you know,
oppression,
the decimation of, you know, Native Americans, that we've tried to evolve and we've tried to make things right, and it's still a work in process.
It's not going to be easy. Nothing worth having is ever easy.
But, you know, fucking racists won't die off. Like,
I know. Why are they so fertile?
Oh,
Like,
I'm
seriously,
telling you,
why
I'm
are
telling
racists
you,
so fertile?
I don't say this playing around. I know it sounds funny, but it's really not. Being a racist must be so exhausting. I mean, can you just think of how exhausting it is? Them, Latin people, them black people, them gays, them
Asians.
them Asians, it's like, oh my God, you hate everybody around you. It's like, oh, it must be so exhausting. Like, oh,
That's
it's
true.
like, can you imagine being a racist and just switching the channel and be like, oh, look at Will and Grace. Like, then switching the channel like, oh, look at Blackish. Oh, like, it's like, oh my God, it must be exhausting. It's like, give yourself relax. It's like, relax. Oh, keep switching your channel. Oh, fresh off the boat. Oh.
They can't even watch CMT anymore.
No.
Because CMT now has, Mom and Golden Girls. And,
It's like, no, seriously, it must be exhausting to be a racist. Like,
Laura. That's great.
Are you a tired racist?
I don't know what kind of pill can help with that, but I guarantee
For tired racists, we have a resort, Dixie Landings Resort.
Oh.
Here you will join other tired racisms and talk
it's like
about
a Betty Ford clinic for racists.
Yes, and talk about the old glory days of the Confederacy. Oh,
Which you never experienced.
but are still cheering for the losing side.
Right.
Oh my God,
Lord.
it's like, oh. So,
That's great.
are you a tired racist?
You're a tired racist.
People just liven up, or
Life's too short.
or as I say, if you're a racist, keep your racist thoughts to yourself. Like,
Yeah. Nobody cares. Or just stick to Twitter.
I know.
I'd rather they do it on Twitter than standing out on a lawn somewhere.
You mean protecting their house from a protest?
Right, protecting their house from imminent danger that's not going to happen.
That's not imminent.
Yeah.
Apparently, people don't know what imminent danger is. But
That's too many
whatever.
syllables. A lot of people probably just think it's like that rapper's going to show up at your house.
So I'm glad we're transitioning to this because we can transition to our guests.
Yes, absolutely.
So, because our guest is not only a distinguished journalist. Have I been drinking?
Yeah, seriously. Like, wait, is there vodka? That looked like water. I don't know.
Have I been drinking?
I know,
am I having a stroke?
I know you got it out of the freezer where I keep the
I
vodka.
think talking about racists has ruined my mind.
Te arruinó.
Like,
Te puso mal.
the racists have risen my blood pressure. But as I mentioned to our next guest in our interview, journalism is one of the most important in the press.
It's the fourth
one
estate.
of the most important pillars in our democracy. And whether you like the press, don't like the press,
Want to meet the press.
the press is essential for a democracy because when democracies die, the first thing that goes is the press.
Yep.
So without further ado,
We have from ABC News and local boy done good because he is a Miami
Done
boy.
very good.
Done very good. Tom Llamas. All right, people. So, as we mentioned, we have with us today local boy done damn good. All right. He is I want to say host, but I think anchor is the correct term, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. The anchor of ABC's World News Tonight. Mr. Tom Llamas is here with us today. Thank you for joining us, man. Really, really appreciate you taking time out to chat with us a little bit.
Pero let me tell you.
Yeah, no, great to be here, guys. I'm a fan of the podcast and an honor to be here.
So, first and foremost, I mean, you're based out of New York, so we know New York is the epicenter of COVID. How are you doing? How's everything up there? I mean, hopefully you're staying safe.
Yeah, it's been strange. It's been, almost 4 months now since we started on this journey. And it's just strange because we were really bad in New York for a month, 2 months. And it was a scary time. You saw hospitals pop up in Central Park. You saw these overflow tents being built outside of every hospital, mostly in New York City. And the city, a lot of people got out. The people that could get out got out. Mm-hmm. Some people couldn't. And it was a strange time. And now we're here 4 months later. And I'm hearing from friends and family in places like Miami about people contracting COVID, about shutdowns, about businesses being forced to lock down again. And it's just upsetting that after all these months, we haven't been able to get a control of the virus. And in New York, just from a personal perspective, I mean, the things that I'm dealing with. So when this started, my family, we had a trip planned to Disney World. I have 3 little kids. And of course, they shut down Disney World. So that was the trauma of telling kids that Disney World is shut down when all this other stuff was happening in the world. Yeah. And then so we decided just to go to Miami. We would take them to Miami because to see my family, we go a lot every year.
Of course.
And then once we were there, I just started seeing the trends, what was happening in Europe and how the countries were shutting borders. And I had a sense that this was going to happen in the U.S., not necessarily shutting borders, but there was going to be travel restrictions. And I told my wife, I said, I bet you there's going to be travel restrictions here. Mm-hmm. And I had to fly back to New York because the story started exploding here in New York. And right when I flew back, they shut down Florida to New Yorkers. So my family was in Miami and I was in New York, and I couldn't see them. So I couldn't see them for about a month, and that was really difficult.
Like I mean, there were people not seeing your family.
Yeah, exactly. No, and then so my wife, who's from New Orleans, she's not Cuban. She's there in Miami with my Cuban parents, as you can imagine. It's an experience. Thankfully, like my family all gets along very well. But it was an experience for her, definitely. That's a whole different podcast. And then so then eventually we decided, like, for me to see my family, they had to move to a different state. So right. They went to Louisiana, where my wife's family is, and I was able to kind of come and go and see them there. And now 4 months later, as I'm talking to you guys, this news has just broke that now New York is saying you can't travel to Louisiana either. It's been added to this list of 9 states that they don't want people traveling to New York, Connecticut, or New Jersey. And it's sort of mind-boggling because, again, it's just 4 months later and we're almost in the same place where we started. New York is much better, and eventually the family's coming back because they have to start school and stuff like that. But it's a sad time, and it's a time where people have to sort of just listen to the rules, and it is so hard because people are fatigued. Yeah. Businesses need to reopen. They're struggling so much. They've been struggling for months, and now they're being told to shut down again. So it's really hard. And I've traveled to a bunch of states. I've been to Arizona, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and at first people weren't following the rules with the masks. And now I'm little by little, finally they're following the rules with the masks, but it's getting to a point where is it too little too late? We're going to have to wait and see.
It's funny. I mean, you say, it's 4 months, and I know it's been 4 months. I mean, obviously, but some days it feels longer. Some days it feels shorter. Like time, what is it? Some people say like time is a construct, right? I've never felt that more so than now, where it's like hearing you say 4 months out loud. I'm like, coño, it's been only 4 months. But if you ask me tomorrow, I would be like, oh my God, it's already been 4. It's bizarre.
The only thing I can compare it to, and you guys know this from living in Miami, is it's the time after a hurricane. The hurricane hits, and then afterwards there's a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of just misery. You're living in misery. Your home has been destroyed. Your friend's home has been destroyed. There's no power. There's a lack of supplies. Things are getting a little hectic. And in Miami, there's no air conditioning, so it's like you're living in hell. It's a little bit like that, but it's been 4 months, and it's for me in New York, it's been much different because New York is a city that changes every season. It thrives off the people, off being open. And the restaurants can only open for delivery. Now they're opening up the sidewalk cafes. But, I mean, everything is shut down here. That's one of the reasons why my family stayed away, is because everything is shut down, including playgrounds. They just opened up playgrounds after 4 months. Wow. So, yeah, and the families that I know, I feel so bad because we do know families that stayed here and they've been confined to their apartments, some of them for months.
No, yeah, what do you do?
And it's sort of a wild way to live. I don't know. It's you figure out,
No, that's crazy. So, I mean, shifting a little bit, you're at ABC, you're anchoring. You are a Miami boy. Actually, you got a birthday coming up. By the time this airs, it'll be the day after your birthday. So happy early birthday, belated. Or happy belated, depending on when people are listening to this.
Yeah,
we are all about the same age. So I know.
Yeah,
you grew up. We all grew up around the same time here in Miami.
Right.
I think you were telling me earlier you graduated in '97. So did we.
Yeah.
You went to Belen. We went to Southwest. But what was it growing up in Miami that at some point you said, I want to pursue journalism? Because as you mentioned, your wife's from New Orleans because you went to university there, to Loyola.
Right.
At what point growing up, in this locura that we call home, right? Was it like, I want to be a journalist. I want to pursue that.
Right. So it's a great story and a great question. So, growing up in Miami, you grow around and it's part of your life, the Cuban American experience, right? It is inescapable, right? This island 90 miles from Florida, it was constantly on our minds. It was at our dinner tables.
Yep.
It was everywhere in the culture. And so because of that, we were constantly talking about current affairs in my family. So we were always talking about Cuba from the time I can remember, whether it was fighting Castro, whether it was what was happening with Lo Alcero, whether it was what was happening in Washington, D.C. with the embargo. There were always conversations around Cuba, protests, cousins coming out, family coming out of Cuba. How do we help them? Things like that. And so it was always a part of my life. Current events were always there. So I was always interested in politics. You mentioned I went to Belen. So at Belen, we had a class in 8th grade called civics, where you basically, you learned how American government works. And one of the homework assignments we had from a teacher named Eugene Zoller was, and it's funny, Eugene Zoller was Anglo, he wasn't Cuban, but he made the best pan con lechon, and which is a very funny thing because you would never suspect that, but he did. And so anyways, he had this assignment where we had to read the Miami Herald, and the way he forced us to read it was you had to highlight all the proper words. And so this exercise, by doing that, there was no way to do this exercise without reading the article. So in 8th grade, I'm reading the Herald columnist, I'm reading the Herald News just as a homework assignment. So that sort of furthers my interest in current events. From there, I take a writing class again at Belen in like 9th grade, and I was like, wow, I really like to write, and I wonder if there's a future here. And so we would sometimes have alumni come in, and a former guest of Pero Let Me Tell You, Louis Aguirre, who was an alumni, actually, he came in. And it was really funny. He said, I'll never forget this. He said, if you like to write, you should look at journalism. And he said, I love to write. And he told us his whole story. And at the time, he was a local reporter in Miami. This is 9th grade. So I don't know. I guess this is like 93 or 94. Right there. And so Louis' career is just beginning to take off. And it's funny because I've run into Louis before on stories. And I always give him a big hug. And he hates for me to tell him that story because he's like, you're making me feel so old. I go, Louis, you look like you're my same age, so you have nothing to worry about.
Please.
Yeah, he looks the same. The guy hasn't aged a bit, and he's also a fantastic guy, a great journalist. Yeah. So anyways, at 15, man, I get the bug, and I start asking questions like, what do I need to do? And, back then the rules for internships were much different. It was sort of like the Wild Wild West. If you wanted to work for free, you could work anywhere. Yeah. And Telemundo, Canal 51 was like, yeah, sure, high school kid, 9th grade, we'll take him on. So I knew somebody who worked there. I went in for an interview. It was so funny. I wore like a little blazer and a tie. And I walk into this newsroom in Hialeah, and, it's very, very sort of pure Cuban, pure Hispanic, very pure Miami of that moment. It was really cool. And there were incredible journalists that were working there as reporters and anchors and producers. And so, my first day, I learned how the assignment desk worked. And then after that, they would send me out. Sometimes photographers go out and, a story won't warrant importance that you need to put a reporter there. Mm-hmm. So you send the crew out, and they'll shoot VO, we call, B-roll, called VO. Sometimes they'll get interviews. We call those SOTs, sound on tape. And so they would send me out to smaller stories to go and do interviews and to shoot some of these VO events. And little by little, I learned how the industry worked. My Spanish got really, really good because I was literally speaking only Spanish all day. And, I saw my first dead body that summer at 15. I covered my first, Cuban-American protest. I saw a lot of things that were happening in Miami at that time. And then at times you would go out with reporters, so you would learn from them as well. So I did that a couple summers in a row. I interned at Channel 10. I did a By Kids for Kids one summer, which was really fun. And then I went to school. I studied journalism, and then little by little, I got my first job in New York. I worked a brutal overnight shift for $14 an hour. And then this was right before 9/11. And then 9/11 happened. And since I had so much experience from working since I was 15 years old, I was able to do a lot of different assignments. I got hired at MSNBC. And so I was able to sort of move up little by little. And then eventually I became a producer, and then a field producer, and then a correspondent little by little.
How would you say, though, in terms of your actual job as a journalist, how would you say the transition was from, being here in Miami, which was your bubble and what you knew with, as you said, predominantly a Cuban American culture, and you were covering a lot of these stories, to transitioning to New York, where now, it's a completely different field, and the stories that you once were covering are not the stories you're going to be covering in New York?
Right. No, it's a good question. I will tell you this. Miami is a phenomenal news city, as you guys know. I mean, so many big stories come out of Miami, whether it be local politics, national politics, with presidential elections, hurricanes, as we mentioned, the issues with Cuba. Miami right now is the capital of Latin America. So you have a lot of different cultures colliding at the same time. So Miami has always been a news haven in America. It's not one of the biggest markets, which a lot of people in Miami don't even know this. Miami, I think, is like the 14th or 15th biggest market. It's around there. It's not even top 10. But the amount of news that you get out of Miami and the exposure you get, the range, it really, in my opinion, and I know the business pretty well, is sort of unmatched. You can go to other big cities like New York. I did local news in New York City. But the range of stories you get in Miami is unlike anything else. You also have a very competitive environment, right? So you had Channel 7 when we were growing up with Rick Sanchez leading the way. Yep. And then you had Channel 6 where I worked, WTVJ, in like 2005, Eyewitness News, and CBS4. Plus you had Telemundo and Univision. Very competitive stations, all competing on the same stories of the day, which delivered very good and quality journalism, in my opinion, especially in the 80s, the 90s, the early aughts. Miami really developed a style of local news going forward. I mean, if you look at the model of Channel 7, what they did with Crime Check and Newsplex as we were growing up, I mean, that served as a model, good or bad, for a lot of other TV stations and TV news coverage in the future. So coming from Miami was actually, I think, a gift. Now, when I got to New York, it was interesting. It was right after Elian. So the national news had been covering Elian for, I think, a year. And so when I got to New York, there were a lot of questions about that, about Elian, the Cuban-American community. I think there were questions. I think there were questions, and not biased questions, but I think there were questions because, the Miami, I think a lot of Miami was sort of, they saw the Elian Gonzalez story one way because it's the way we lived, right? So we saw it from our perspective, from our lens, which was a family leaving an oppressive regime. A lot of the other countries saw, wait, it's a kid who wants to get reunited with his dad. And it's just not that black and white, right? It was very nuanced. There was a lot going on to that story. So there were a lot of conversations about that. But once you cover local news anywhere, whether it be Iowa City, Iowa, or Miami, Florida, once you learn the basics of journalism, and most people start out covering crime just like I did, you cover crime, you cover politics, you cover natural disasters, you sort of learn along the way how to cover a tornado, how to cover a hurricane, and little by little it becomes the same. They say, the fires are the same in Miami as they are in New York, they're just bigger in New York, which is true. The challenge to covering news, like local news in New York City, is that it's so massive, right? You're dealing with 23 million people. So you could start your afternoon in Connecticut, and then you're in the Bronx, and then you're in New Jersey, and then you're on Long Island. So it's a lot bigger than sort of the Tri-County area in South Florida. But being from Miami, covering news in Miami, working in Miami, in my opinion, has always been sort of a blessing and an extra tool I've had. And you look at a lot of great journalists, especially in my business, but you also look at print, and a lot of really great people have come through the Miami Herald, have come through Miami local TV stations. So I've always thought it's a great place to come from. It's also still a great place to work.
Yeah. And how would you say, because I've always thought that our age group, late 30s, early 40s, we're in an interesting age group because we were kids, in the analog era, I want to call it, but we developed into teenagers in the digital era. So we kind of belong to both worlds in a way.
Zillennials, they call us?
Yeah. So we kind of straddle both worlds. Yeah. So how would you say for somebody like you, you're still a young guy, but you've been doing this for a while now. How would you say your job as a journalist or journalism as a whole, what has changed with the rise of technology and Twitter and all that? And what are some of the challenges that you
face now as a journalist.
So before you,
That makes
You know,
me-
every
before you
yeah.
answer that, Tom, I actually want to piggyback a little bit on that question, because I know that you are also part of a team with ABC News, the streaming, the news
Right.
streaming
Yeah,
as
we
well,
just launched.
which
Yeah.
I know I read somewhere that like their goal is, I think right now it's like 2 hours live news a day, but their goal is to like 18
Right.
hours a day live. So
Right.
do you feel like there's, kind of piggybacking, so feel free to integrate it however, we're living in this constant news cycle world, does that affect,
Yeah.
I think also, where we're
Yeah.
at?
Yeah, every generation sort of faces this change in media in our industry. And so if you talk to somebody like one of my mentors, Jose Diaz-Balart, who's an amazing person.
Phenomenal,
If you talk to him,
phenomenal
yeah,
journalist.
phenomenal guy. And if you talk to him about when he started, I mean, they would go and shoot a story. If they had to shoot a story in Nicaragua or Haiti, there was no way to get that story back. This is before satellites. People would drop off tapes at times. Maybe Jose's like a little bit younger than that, but there was a time where you would shoot a story, and the photographers would tell me this when I worked at TVJ. You'd shoot a story, you'd edit it, and then you put it on a helicopter or an airplane to fly it back to Miami so it would run the next day.
Jesus.
Which you think
You
and that's in our
overnight it.
lifetime. Yeah, you think that's in our lifetime. And also, you got to think about those journalists. It's like, coño que fácil. They did it. They're done. Their day is done. They've made that story, and it's like it's time to
I
drink.
don't mean that's it.
Yeah, now because of first with satellites, and then now with the internet, and then social media, our job never stops. And I always tell young journalists when I mention them, ABW, you always have to be working. You always have to be working. Always be working, and it's good and it's bad. You will get news as fast as possible right now. There's been no other era where you could receive news as fast as you can receive it right now. The problem comes is that when news comes out that fast, you have to be careful, right? And now everybody has a platform. So you have the rise of fake news. So you're battling that as well. You have the social media platforms that more and more people get their news from those platforms. So you mentioned about our generation, how we sort of straddle sort of millennials and then Generation X. And I agree with you. And it's weird because I think our generation is sort of maybe the last generation that can look at an old 60 Minutes piece and be like, wow, man, that is just incredible. Like, look at what they did here. Look at the interviews. Look how they put the story together. And then, you could look at somebody's hot take on Twitter, and it's completely different, and it's going to be looked at by millions of people. And it's a weird time, man, because if you still respect sort of like that old school era in our industry of news and the way to communicate, and this new era, which is completely different, it sort of breaks all the rules, but it's more immediate. It's quicker, it's shorter, it's punchier. It's great. It can be amazing at times, and I think it can be a challenge at times too.
To go off with what you said, we've had a couple of, as you know, journalists on the show. Rick Sanchez, Luis Aguirre, Boris Sanchez from CNN, and I always like to ask them this question.
Yeah.
In this time now that fake news is, a catch, it's a saying now.
Right.
How does an organization like, in your case, ABC News, which is a legit, reputable, respectable organization, and yourself as a journalist, how do you just fight this? Because sometimes I see it, and I'm like, I would be so frustrated if I was a journalist and I was out there doing my job, reporting the news, which is my job, what I'm supposed to do, and you have all these people attacking you now, with fake news. How do you fight that? Right.
So you got to remember, like, fake news has now become a brand for a lot of reasons, and it's become sort of, it's now in our lexicon a lot more. But you have to remember, the media has always come under assault. Even growing up, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a campaign against the Miami Herald. There were these yellow bumper stickers. You don't creo el Miami Herald, right? I can remember that. Yeah. I remember that people had those bumper stickers. I don't believe the Miami Herald. So sort of this idea of fake news has always existed. I mean, Nixon railed against the media too. I mean, this has always existed. I think it's bigger now. It's amplified more because of social media and because it's easier to spread fake news. I mean, it's really easy to spread fake news now. And so I think at ABC, our mantra is straightforward news, right? That's our model. We believe in objective journalism. We're going to tell you the story. We're just going to tell you the facts. We're going to give you the context, and that's it. We're not into opinion. We're not into taking sides.
Right.
And me as a journalist, that's what drives me. That's my North Star, right? I still believe that in this country we need journalism that is objective. And it's on the cover of the New York Times, but I do believe that you got to report the news without fear or favor. I really do think that should be everyone's North Star. And so that being said, fake news is out there. You can't stop it. The genie's out of the bottle. Friends and family all the time come to me and they say, but did you hear this? And I'm like, that's not true. And I have to send them like a link of what's actually true.
Right.
And it just, to me, what the only thing that sort of...
That's like another full-time job for you.
Right. The only thing that surprises me a little bit is that consumers are very savvy and news viewers are very, very savvy. But when news comes out, sometimes that's not true, but it leans towards your politics or towards what you believe. I think you're more apt to believe it. So people will send me something. It's usually like an opinion that they believe, and they'll be like, but did you see this? And I'll say, yeah, but that's not true. And then I have to send them like to a couple different links to show them that it's not true. And then they, okay, thanks for explaining it, which is totally fine. But I just think that there's so much of it out there, and people sometimes just let themselves, okay, I'm gonna believe this, or I want to believe this.
People are also overwhelmed, I think, to the point.
Oh, there's so much news.
I mean, yes, you should fact check everything, but if you're gonna fact check every single thing, at some point people just kind of throw their hands up in the air, I think, and go, you know what, so be it. Out of sheer frustration.
Yeah, no, and look, and journalists also aren't perfect people. I mean, journalists do make mistakes, and the best thing to do is correct those mistakes and go on the record and say, this is how we're correcting them. I mean, journalists are humans. Everyone makes mistakes, right. But we try. What people need to understand, I think most people do, we try as hard as we can to get to the truth and to get to the facts, and that's what we've been doing at ABC News.
Yeah. So one of the things on ABC News that I can't think of another journalist who had as much access to the First Lady as you did when you did your series, your interview with Melania Trump. And I have to say, I'm a huge fan of The View, and I remember when you were on The View talking about the interview coming up, I was a little jealous because I'm a huge fan of The View. Like, you don't understand. Like,
right now he's literally just like fanboying because he's now 1 degree away from The View.
No, because honestly, I love the show, but then also the show does even inspire our podcast because I'll say something like, on The View they were talking about this and whatever.
Well, look, we'll get you some tickets, man. Okay, I'm gonna get you some tickets.
Awesome.
You just became his new best friend. Just saying.
So I personally, I've always been fascinated and intrigued by Melania Trump. There's just so much there. So as somebody who you've had access to her, and if I recall your interview with her, she was pretty open to all questions.
Yeah, there were no questions off the table.
What was your impression of her? Because I think she's fascinating.
Yeah. Okay, so the First Lady, I think you're right. I think she is a fascinating person. I think she's somebody who a lot of people misunderstand. I think there's like this public perception of Melania Trump because she sort of is this woman who was a model, who was married to Donald Trump, who is an immigrant, whose first language is not English. So there are a lot of these different sides to Melania Trump. I think people who don't like the president, for the most part, don't like Melania Trump. A lot of people, they don't like her. They think, how can this woman be married to a man like President Trump? Where I found people who love President Trump love Melania Trump. And I actually watched the interview with people on both sides of the aisle to kind of gauge what they thought of the interview at times. And it was interesting to kind of see their perspective. If you don't like her, you hated her answers. If you love her, you loved her answers. And it was kind of this thing where we were just trying to get to the truth of the matter, which I think we did. But it was interesting to kind of see those perspectives. She reads and absorbs everything that she can that is written or published about her. She's definitely somebody who is aware of what's going on. She's not in the dark. So all the headlines about her husband, about Stormy Daniels, about Michael Cohen, she is aware of all that, right? And we got to that in the interview, as you could see. Donald Trump, I covered him for nearly 2 years in the campaign trail, is a very complicated person. and she has been married to Donald Trump. I think she's been married to Donald Trump the longest at this point. She has a son with Donald Trump, but she is also with President Trump. But she's also sort of stayed out of the limelight as a first lady. You know, she did her Be Best initiative. She did the interview with us, the high-profile primetime interview with us. But since then, you know, we haven't seen as much of the first lady as maybe we thought we were gonna. You know, in the first couple of years of the presidency, we saw a lot of her. And it's interesting because we have a campaign coming up, right? We are in a campaign. And she was out of the campaign trail a little bit 4 years ago, every now and then. But especially during this time of COVID, she's done a couple of sort of public service announcements. But for the most part, Melania watchers will say that she's kept a much lower profile since the interview. I don't think it's because of the interview. I think she got to a point where, you know, like she told me, she says she's the most bullied person on the planet. And a lot of people will be surprised because they see her husband as the biggest bully on the planet. But if you look at Twitter and if you look at anything she ever tweets, and if you look at the comments right after she puts me out on Twitter, I mean, they are vicious. They are vicious. And if you're somebody who reads that day in, day out, and I don't know what that can do to your psyche. I mean, she definitely has a thick skin. I mean, you have to be at that level. But I don't know what that would do if you're somebody that consumes all the media that she does day in, day out, what that does to you. So, look, I think she's a mystery, man. And I think we got a taste of what she is like in that interview, but I think there's a lot more to her. And I wonder if we will ever get the full story about her, and we actually may.
Yeah, that's why I find her so fascinating, because there's more than meets the eye there. In your interview, there were some layers peeled back, especially when she said that the things she objected about her husband. But you know what? I actually wanted to congratulate you on that interview in specific, because I mean, I'm no fan of the Trumps, but I thought that you did it in a very dignified way, and you asked her some really tough questions. But I mean, you could have gone in there and just been totally like controversial and whatever. You took a very dignified way. At the same time, asked her the questions that all of us wanted, you know, answered. So I wanted to congratulate you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
I thought that was objective journalism.
There was a big team that helped us out on that interview. We had a lot of people, and we talked about the questions for a long time. We talked about the questions probably every day from the moment we knew we had the interview. And I wanted to hear from a lot of different people. And somebody who gave me the best advice I've ever gotten was Diane Sawyer. And we're lucky enough to have her at ABC News. She's a legend and probably the best interviewer, I think, on the planet.
Yeah.
And Diane, I went to her because Diane's in a lot of these very difficult interviews because there was going to be difficult questions. I mean, she said no questions off the table. And some of these questions, they're not easy to ask. They're just not easy to ask anybody, even your best friend. So to ask the First Lady, it was a completely different ballgame. And so Diane was such a great person. She's so generous with her time and with her knowledge. And I worked with her a lot on sort of how to craft certain questions. And she's so giving that, you know, it was a huge help to me. And I think it definitely made the interview better.
No, I mean, Diane Sawyer. Come on, that's all you had to say.
Yeah.
You had access to Diane Sawyer.
Legendary Diane Sawyer.
Yeah.
Okay, Tom. You know, as we wrap up our interview, I just want to again.
No. Hey, I'm just getting started.
Oh, listen, we could sit here and talk to you for like 8 hours without. Listen, what
else,
happens when three Cubans get together and have an interview? Yeah. It's like 8 hours is not enough, right? It's
yeah.
But you know, go ahead, DJ.
No, there's actually something else I want to pick his brain at.
All right.
Yeah.
Where do you think we are? Because you know you're a journalist. You've been around. You've seen some things. And as I said, you know you're a young guy like us. Yeah. But you know you've been doing this for a while. Where do you see us as a country, as a society, where we are now? Because you know obviously some people think we are at the worst of the worst right now. I mean, obviously, if you look at the history of the United States, we've been in very, tumultuous times before. Where would you say we are right now as a country, and media's role in that?
Yeah, look, I mean, no doubt it is a very difficult time. I think it's a difficult time for everyone. I think on a macro level, it's tough for the country. It's tough for individual states. At the same time, you're really dealing with three things, right? You're dealing with COVID-19 right now, the pandemic. You're dealing with issues of race, and you're dealing with an upcoming election, right? And so it's difficult for the country, but I also think it's difficult around the dinner table, And I think looking at Miami and how much Miami has changed over the last 10, 20, 30 years, you see it there in Miami. You're all the same problems we see across the country, you're seeing exactly in Miami too. You've had the protest in Miami. Right. You're having a problem right now with the pandemic, and you have an upcoming election. And you just had this thing just north of you guys in the villages, this issue with this video where, a Trump supporter was yelling out white power, and the president retweeted it and deleted it. So look, I think we're living at a complicated time, and I think we'll get through it. And I think the next several months are going to be months we will never forget, especially going into this election, because I don't even know how. I just had to apply for the credential for the Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention with the Secret Service, and I was wondering, how are these conventions even going to really look like? They're these events that sort of rally their parties together, and for some people, they're places where they can, the last venue they watch to see who they're going to pick to vote for. What's that going to look like? I think if you really care about this time right now, Miami, go back to 1968. In the country, go back to 1968. That was a year in our country, unlike anything in the last maybe 50 years. And look at that time in 1968, because that was a time that this country was facing assassinations, protests with race. All types of uncertainty. I also think it's a tough time now. And for both you guys would acknowledge this. Our generation, I always say, people have had a very tough time with coronavirus and everything else that's happening right now. It's a tough time. It's been horrible. But other American generations have had to deal with so much worse. We have dealt with wars and we dealt with 9/11, but we did not have to deal with a draft. Our parents dealt with the Vietnam draft. Our grandparents dealt with World War II here in America. Our families dealt with leaving a country, leaving everything behind, starting from scratch. I have little kids, and I was separated from them for a month, and it was like killing me. And then I was thinking, like, all the Pedro Pan kids, that basically left their parents. Some of them didn't see them again for years. Some of them never saw them again. So, this is a tough time right now. It's horrible. It's not easy for anyone, but I think we will get through this. Especially us in Miami, we have dealt through a lot, and I think we come from good stock. And we'll get through this, and we'll learn from this, and we'll be a better country, I hope, on the outside of this.
Yeah. I can't think of a better way to end the interview than on that note. Honestly, you put it so succinctly, man. Again, thank you so much for taking time out. I know we can see you on ABC, everywhere on ABC at this point, right? Because you've been all over on all the news programs. But thank you again.
Thank you for doing what you do.
Doing what you do, because the
media and journalism and the press is the foundation of our democracy, and we got to keep hammering that into people's minds.
Here, man. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And guys, thank you to you. And I love the idea of this podcast. What you guys are doing is great. Miami is a unique, and it is one of the greatest cities in the world. And I think what you guys are doing, capturing both sort of the nostalgia of Miami, but also what's happening around the world today is awesome. And I'm going to keep listening.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right.
Thank you.
Cuídate.
Yeah, cuídate. Un abrazo, socio.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And we're back.
Okay. We really could have talked to him for like another day and a half.
Actually, it's funny because, yes, we could have gone on speaking with him in terms of the show for a much longer. But he is somebody that I would love to sit down.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Just have a long conversation.
Let's just have a coffee. Just sit and what do you do for 2 hours? Let's just go meet and have a drink.
Yeah, because he's just... maybe because he's our exact age, and maybe because he has a similar background to us.
Same background.
But it's just, it's so interesting to hear his perspective, and to hear not only it's to hear his perspective, but because he's been to so many places and he's interviewed so many people and he's been on the front lines.
He's seen some things.
He has seen some things, but yet he's still young enough to kind of see things from a more modern perspective,
right,
and a more modern lens. I loved speaking to him, and I would love to pick his brain on other
Everything.
stuff. There was so much more I wanted to ask him, but due to time constraints,
Yes.
But
actually, before we even started the interview, the one thing I will say, he loves our intro. So,
yes.
you know, Michael, good job on the intro. He said it reminded him of Hot Wheels.
Hot Wheels, yes.
Which is exactly what we were going for. So that made me happy as hell.
Yeah. So anyway, but that was I really enjoyed that one. So we're thirsty.
Are we? I don't know. You sound like you've been having vodka already. I don't know. Should you drink any more? I don't know.
A limoncello. Oh,
that would be really nice.
no, I don't like limoncello.
But then why would you say it?
Because limoncellos are refreshing, but I don't like them.
But it's like you like lemonade. You love Arnold Palmer's.
I do. Ay, qué rico. Una limonada ahora de la feria.
Oh, actually, you know what? This weekend,
Feria limonada is the
this
best.
weekend they're doing the drive-through again, and they have lemonade.
Feria
we went last week.
Limonada is the best.
We went last week. I had a corn dog. We had elephant ear. We got limonada. Yes.
I remember when I saw limonada was $1.
Listen, I remember when you could fill up a tank of gas with $10 and get change back.
Yeah, but
No,
you know, inflation.
my old Buick Regal, we could fill it up with less than $10.
Yeah, and that thing was a tank.
Exactly.
That thing was a tank.
But
so,
it drove us everywhere.
Yeah. Actually, I don't have that many memories in your Buick Regal.
No?
No, because we didn't. Whatever. Anyway, let's talk about our last.
Okay. We'll revisit this some other day. So do you want to go first?
No, let's do.
That's how we're going to do our joint.
Yes.
So we're going to be a little cheesy here for a second, and I think we kind of built up to it.
Us cheesy.
Never. Hamas. For our last soda, you know, we were talking about it before the break, and ultimately we're going to give our last soda to the U.S. You know, happy 4th of July, happy birthday.
Since we're giving it to the U.S., it's like giving to the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, okay, I like her. She must have a hell of a tricep.
Yeah. You know, she's French. Que extraño that the racists have not tried to get rid of the Statue of Liberty. Because, you know, she's technically an immigrant.
Yeah, but she's French. It's the same way as like if she was British. That doesn't count for racists.
I guess. Yeah, but she's technically an immigrant.
No, I know, but racist, if she would have been a black French person, then yes.
The racist would have gone wild.
They would have been out there on
Oh my God,
rowboats.
can you imagine that horrible video? Racist Gone Wild. Order now and get Racist Gone Wild on spring break.
Oh, I do not want to see the average racist woman lift up her shirt.
There's a lot of Bush beer. Okay, we just lost that endorsement. That was my opinion. That was my opinion, everybody. That was my opinion as an individual. That does not reflect the opinions of Pero Let Me Tell You Productions, LLC. Disclaimer. Whoa, dude.
I'm laughing because you're absolutely fucking right.
Do you think racists drink Corona?
God, no.
Or Land Shark?
No, but you know what the funny thing is? Even though it sounds Asian, they could drink Yingling because it's the oldest brewery in the U.S.
It is?
I didn't know this until I saw the commercials.
What is it, Pabst?
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's like hipster beer.
Hipster beer. Even though it's been around since like the World's Fair from 1896.
Well, yeah, because, you know, when you're a hipster and you're driving your penny farthing, you know, you get off of that thing and then you have your Pabst Blue Ribbon.
And that is our opinion also on hipsters. That is our opinion.
Although they're not a protected class, so I think we're okay.
Okay, what were we saying?
I don't even know anymore.
Well,
I think I'm drinking the vodka now.
We're thinking of the Statue of Liberty. Okay, because what we were saying is, which we talked upon it a little bit before the interview, is that we believe in the promise of our country.
Correct.
We believe in what you can become in our country if, you know, all
things being equal.
All things being equal. And that is...
And the promise of the country is that all things can be equal.
Right, because to quote Paula Abdul, it's the promise of a new day. That's why I feel this way.
We can't rush enough to get there.
But you know,
I'm
blowing kisses in the wind because I'm spellbound over all this wonderful protesting. And
I mean,
and
look,
I'm gonna straight up tell you.
Well, look, you can straight up tell me.
My cold heart.
Okay, yes, but I'm gonna tell
racists are cold-hearted snakes.
Yes, but you know what else, racist? You know what? Opposites attract.
Right. So racist opposites attract. Stop being cold-hearted snakes.
Right.
Because then, you know, you're gonna rush into some type of spell-binding situation that...
And only you
Only you
Can
will know
prevent
that
that.
your love is not real.
Exactly. And then you know what? Otherwise, it's all crazy cool.
Perfect. Perfect. We need to tag Paula Abdul.
We need to tag Paula and figure out how to get her to hear
And
this.
if you're a
'cause
Paula Abdul fan and
let her know, or you know her,
and
like,
you just listen to this, you would love
please,
it. And
please.
if you don't like Paula Abdul,
you have no idea what we just did right now.
Right. So, and why wouldn't you like Paula Abdul? Are you a racist? You know.
You know, Paula Abdul dances through her arthritis.
Exactly. Paula Abdul is a national treasure.
She is a national treasure.
Have you seen that
A Syrian national treasure.
Have you seen that amazing meme that somebody posted that it said the cure to 2020 is to decipher Britney Spears?
I posted it.
You posted it?
I posted it. Somebody, I reposted it, but I posted it. Yeah.
To decipher Britney
Yeah,
Spears.
the key to
Instagram?
2020 is in Britney's Instagram. We just have to decipher it.
Yeah.
And they're true. That's true.
Do you think so? I'm telling you, I'm still on the fence about Britney's Instagram.
She's trying to tell us something.
I don't know because, like, for example, Stephanie says that she's sure that she had a lobotomy. That her dad subjected her to a lobotomy. Which
The only reason I would counter that is just because when you have a lobotomy, you don't show any emotion, and she walks those little runways with too much happiness.
yeah, and lobotomies have been outlawed for a few
But
years.
they're still done.
Right, but she could have had an underground lobotomy. I mean, under the table lobotomy. Who knows? Wow, we're really all over the place. But there's a part of me that's like the more positive part of me that thinks like, you know, I've told you, she has nothing to promote. This is the
Right.
first
She's
time
like,
in
fuck
her
it.
adult life that she's not doing anything.
She's her own
And
person,
She's
yeah.
like, fuck it, I'm here with Sam in my mansion, and I'm gonna
can't leave.
I'm gonna do whatever I want. I'm gonna do yoga. I'm gonna dance to Otis Redding.
Yes,
and
that's what she was
gonna
doing today.
Sweat. I'm gonna sweat and wear little outfits that Alexander McQueen gave me just randomly.
Why not?
Why not?
Listen, I would do the same thing if I was Britney Spears.
Yeah, so like I
wouldn't?
don't, there's a part of me that that's what I want to believe, you know, that she's just being herself, because, you know, I think that the root of all this was when she had too much choreography in her head.
You know, and it's probably still in there.
Can you imagine?
That's why she's
if you're
dancing
like,
so
Brittany,
much.
Brittany, give me right now the routine to Crazy. She'd be like, all right.
She's like,
Dun-dun, dun-dun, dun-dun. Crazy.
that's why you shouldn't have too much choreography in your head, boys and girls.
That poor girl, she fucked up her ankle when she was on that MTV spring break cruise.
Yes.
Then she messed up her knee on the set of Outrageous. We never got the video. That should have been the
That's
next
true.
single. You know, whatever.
You know what?
Instead, we got Radar on 2 albums.
Yes. With the damn horse in the video.
Whatever.
We are way past the tangent.
So, everybody, we hope you have a wonderful 4th of July.
Yes.
A celebrar America.
Yes, guys, you know.
Because nothing says America like pastelitos.
I
mean, let's be honest.
Let's be honest. I mean, what am I going to say? No.
No, I mean, nothing says America like a pastelito de guayaba y una croqueta.
Una croqueta, hello.
Y un cafecito.
Ay, qué rico.
So,
I want all these things right
we
now.
hope you listened, laughed, and learned. Oh my God. I can't believe that we had such a serious conversation with Tom. And here we are talking about Paula Abdul and Britney Spears. But,
You know what? He'd probably join us.
But anyway, everybody, again, have a happy 4th of July. Have a great weekend. As always, grab your pastelito, your croqueta, and your cafecito. Thank you for joining us. We hope you listened, laughed, and learned. And that was episode 116. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye, people. Cuídense. Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.